Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, JP John Paz from the two-man power trip of wrestling. Of course, joining me is the financial pro wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavi Margolin. Lavi, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, doing good. The weather is changing for the better. I've been trying to get jogging a little bit, but it's hard to get the wind back.
Now, as far as some of the weather improving, does that mean we're going to see more outdoor shows, or does that really not matter as much?
Well, what was it? Northeast Wrestling, which has been quiet for a while. I know that they had booked something already in the summer. That seems to be their key. I think with it's a shame, like here in New York with the Brooklyn Cyclones when they worked with TNA, I think originally, and then Ring of Honor. It's like a really nice thing, especially if you have like a minor league team that's fairly popular and you can promote this show for like the first month or 6 weeks of the minor league season, whatever it is. You kind of build up excitement, and it's like the thing to do, even if you're not a pro wrestling fan.
Now, as far as what you're up to right now, I know you're reading the Untamed, Unbelievable Life of Macho Randy Savage by John Finkel. Yes, great. I just got that in as well, but I just actually interviewed John, but we only scratched the surface, so we got to get him on this show.
Yeah, nice. It's a different sort of book. I feel like John, and not to speak about his expertise or career. Like I feel like he writes biographies of a lot of mainstream figures, especially in sports. Macho Man Randy Savage is very mainstream, so there's more of like a pop culture feel to the book to it, rather than like something that's like heavy research. Where like which
Yeah.
I love, like where you're like, okay, Ric Flair was in this town and it drew this amount and whatever. Like I understand this book isn't necessarily going for that audience. So not to say it's not well researched, but I'm trying to like reset my brain because ECW Press has published a lot of wrestling books, but the last few that I can think of, at least like the Andre book, in the Flair book, they felt like very heavy research, whereas this seems like a little bit in the past where you're like looking at a really interesting figure, you're finding interesting tidbits and facts about their life, but it's a little bit lighter.
Yeah. And not so much geared towards the hardcore fans. I think maybe more geared for like the casual audience, if you will.
Yeah, I'm like, not everyone has to know exactly what they drew in a town, that people are mostly not familiar with, to the dollar, to the person. But I happen to like that, so it's not the best publishing strategy. So maybe this is a good idea.
Now, starting off the show, let's talk about Beyond Wrestling. What is going on with Beyond?
So we haven't talked much about Beyond, and certainly
Yeah.
they haven't been headliner for the show in a while, especially if we're not talking about YouTube, where they are stunning and amazing on YouTube. But they had what they had deemed, I believe, their biggest show to date, Beyond Wrestling. And this is from our friends, PW Ponderings, we're the official business podcast. So working it in. Beyond Wrestling Shamrock Slam took place in Boston at a festival supported by Harpoon Brewery and Clown Shoes Beer. They hit an attendance record of 2,232 fans who watched some great action. Congratulations to the whole team. So, something that I'm curious about, and I think it's that for people that went to the festival, you can go to the wrestling show. So, they didn't necessarily draw 2,000 plus ticket buyers that wanted to see Beyond Wrestling, which is fine. Obviously, enough ticket buyers wanted to go to the wrestling show. So that should be great for them, maybe for a potential renewal in the future. Um, Boston.com shaded it a little bit in promoting this festival. If you're looking for a way to celebrate St. Patty's Day, we have a little code for you. You can get $5 off at the Harpoon, which has music, drinks, and for some reason, pro wrestling. So even when they do well, pro wrestling suffers a little bit. But Beyond had tweeted out, we have to shout out the amazing team at Harpoon and Clown Shoes for making Shamrock Slam possible. There's no scenario where we could have pulled off an event of the scale in Boston without having their meticulous planning and precise execution. Thank you for having us.
A little bit of a knock there on them for whatever reason. Not
Yeah,
not and pro wrestling for some reason.
yeah, it's sort of like for people that are into it, you always have to like knock it. Where I'm trying to contextualize it now, and a lot of us who follow pro wrestling, we follow MMA and fight sports. When we hear about slap fighting, we're like, that's disgusting. It's ridiculous. It's dangerous. So, like, I think that's a lot of people's reaction to pro wrestling and like MMA. So, like if we're not knowledgeable about it, I don't know if we learn more about slap fighting that there's a certain intricacy, but I think that's like people's reaction to it. So whenever it's like connected to something that people don't want necessarily connected to, that's sort of their reaction to it historically, like right for the last 70 years.
Big time, big time. Now, as far as TNA is going on, what is going on? And with the shakeup with D'Amore, they're still going to D'Amore's old hometown, though, right?
Yeah, so they were there. Of course, that was already booked by D'Amore in the college, which somebody had a picture of it when there's no like they have little risers usually set up, and it's quite a small space, but nothing wrong with that, especially as we've been talking about knowing who you are and pack it out, and that's the best way to go sometimes. But CTV News Windsor reporter Sanjay Maru had a feature about TNA and if they'd come back following D'Amore's leaving. TNA Wrestling says it looks forward to returning to Windsor despite management shakeup. TNA Wrestling say they are looking forward to returning to Windsor. Despite a shakeup involving the company's president, Windsor native whose termination left fans around the world stunned by his removal. On Friday, TNA hosted one of its monthly premium events, Sacrifice, inside the classic gym of St. Clair College in Windsor. This marked the first event TNA has held in Windsor since the company's ownership group. Anthem Sports announced it had terminated the contract of D'Amore. D'Amore, a Windsor native who had a working relationship with TNA between 2003 and 2010, before returning in 2017, was named president in March 2023. In that same year, TNA Wrestling brought two of its monthly premium live events to Windsor, Sacrifice and Slammiversary. D'Amore's removal as TNA president has left many fans wondering if Sacrifice 2024 taping, which was announced to take place in Windsor prior to D'Amore's termination, would mark the last time TNA ever brings in a live show. I doubt TNA will be coming back soon, said a fan, Christopher Quinn, prior to the event. However, in a statement to CTV News, the promotion said Windsor is not exempt from hosting shows in the future, despite the shakeup involving upper management. Windsor is a great wrestling city with history and diehard fans. Windsor is one of the many cities we truly enjoy visiting. We look forward to returning. Local wrestler John Alexander and Bhupinder Gujdar were among the litany of TNA performers who stepped in the ring during the Sacrifice tapings. For Alexander, this marked the first time he wrestled in a TNA Premium Live event. So, fair enough. A long article, so go back and check it out. But apparently, there was some technical issues. We know how disappointing it is to miss critical action on tonight's Sacrifice. Due to technical issues, we apologize and will work to make the complete show available as soon as possible after the event. Are there any other live spectacles where there aren't as many technical issues as in the world of pro wrestling?
I know it does feel like that for whatever reason. It kind of sucks, and you get that bad, like, oh, amateur hour or something like that. But it does feel like wrestling always kind of gets those glitches. Even, of course, the Evolution or excuse me, Revolution pay per view for AEW, people were complaining that it was going out because of Bleacher Report. So I feel like that always happens. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, I guess the only worst example was the UFC in the early days. Well, partly because they weren't timing it well, and I think there were technical issues sometimes where they would draw like a great buy rate for them at the time, and then it'd be like, okay, we're gonna have to return the money.
Right? Yeah, not good. Ticket wise, though, are they doing okay in TNA right now?
So let's take a look here. Sometimes I feel like fans of TNA, like at their biggest shows, they're like, yeah, like kind of like, and they should celebrate it. They're like, we're on top of the world. You draw 1,500 people and then sort of don't want to look at the general scope of like the week to week or biweekly, whenever they're running. So they're at the 2300 Arena, March 22nd and March 23rd. So It looks like about the second or third row gone for both of those shows. So getting closer there. So not a great pre-sale yet. On April 20th for Rebellion, the ticket, according to WrestleTix, they've distributed 333 tickets, current setup of 1231. The following day, a same setup, but 215 tickets distributed. Then they have their shows. Tickets are not on sale yet, or just on sale if they are, in Albany, a double shot. Smartly, and I think they've done this before, both in Albany potentially, but also in other places, team up with like a local minor league, whether it's baseball or here it's arena football, for 3 consecutive nights of action. So it'll be like Albany Firebirds happen to be playing in their arena the night before 2 nights of TNA. So they'll sort of collaborate on that co-promotion. And Moose and AJ Francis will be the honorary captains for the Firebirds league for the team's home game on Thursday, May 2nd against the Nashville Cats. It'll be jointly announced today by TNA Wrestling and the Firebirds. Both Moose and Francis will be part of the pregame coin toss and participate in many other activities, promotions, and team events at the game. So, it's a win. Nothing wrong with that. You have, I don't know, the arena football keeps being here and then going out, but I think Albany has been one of their strongest markets traditionally. So once you have of that, I'd imagine, given the venue size that they played, it's multiples of TNA for a traditional show. So if you get some of those fans to carry over, that's great. And if you get a few TNA fans interested in arena football, that's good too.
And of course, Moose and AJ Francis, two former NFL players, have a nice little tie-in for their football tie-in. So that works too, and makes a lot of sense just as far as that.
That actually, yeah, that's a good point. I don't want to go so far as to say that they'd probably be most qualified for arena. No, but yeah, it's good to show people that have a football background and they happen to be in the main event mix. Of course, when it's a champion, I believe that
Moose, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's an even tie-in.
What is going on in the world of MLW? Are they doing even more of a team up with CMLL?
Yeah, so what's nice is when you put your belt on a CMLL headliner like Mystico, you can have him defend the belt in Mexico, which makes it seem bigger than it is. So he's already done so against Angel de Oro, I believe successfully. So it sort of like makes it seem bigger than it is. And then March 29th in St. Petersburg, they've been announcing different CMLL talents like Star Jr., but looking at their forthcoming shows, St. Petersburg, TV taping in War Chamber, Cicero Stadium for the Lucha show, Atlanta for Battle Riot, and New York, not yet on sale in late August. So looking at the ticket sales for War Chamber, there are in the second row singles still available, and then the third row some pairs together. It looks like by the pattern that there's like a carving out of seats, so not all of these necessarily were on sale. So we'll have to see once it's on television what that really looks like. Azteca Lucha in Georgia, they have some front row tickets still available, a fair amount of second row and beyond, and not too many. Well, it looks like they didn't put on tickets for sale maybe beyond the fourth row. They had listed this as one of their fastest selling shows previously. So from our friends at Slam Wrestling, they had a brief interview with Court Bauer talking about the boss fight action figures, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. When he was asked if there were any concerns now that some of the talent featured in Series 1 are no longer with MLW, Bauer said there were none whatsoever. Bauer said that MLW is entering a phase of aggressive commercialization in the licensing and content distribution. MLW is now in 60 countries and growing, which is unlocking doors in the licensing space, but clarifies this is just the beginning of a long gestating process. As of right now, Series 1 is sold out since the demand exceeded all of their expectations. But Boss Fight Studio is moving fast to restock, and Bauer said they're deep into development on Wave 3 and sketching out Wave 4 as we speak. I guess the challenge will that talent cycles in and out, and it takes a while to mold these figures and then get them to
Yeah.
market and so on, so that often you'll have a lot of the talent won't be there anymore. And this is not even WWE, like a certain percentage aren't there anymore every time they come out with like a new series, but if they're selling them, then everyone is happy.
That does kind of stink. Like EJ and Duca, okay, he gets his figure. He's not even there anymore. He's kind of, well, he's in AEW, but he hasn't really been on TV. Lince Dorado, does he even still work there anymore? Microman, does he even still work there anymore? Obviously, Karrion Kross in WWF. So it kind of stinks to do that, and the guys aren't even there anymore. And Madge Kruger was gone, but now he's back.
Yeah, so that's for them. Is he? I was confused. Is he also Cruel on the independent scene, or is that someone else?
Yes. Yep, that's him.
Okay. As I was like the two big guys in mass, but it's the same guy. Yeah, I guess it's more of like a classic type series, right? Because you always have the talents that aren't there anymore, as opposed to like highlighting current talents, which is a shame because it sort of makes you look like a little bit less than you are. Because if you have talent signed and it's a couple of years and you get going with these figures and they're there a year when you're selling it, then it's all tied in. But if you're making merchandise and they're not there, then it sort of looks like people are just passing through. I guess it was a real shame with Fatu because he was there so long. And I guess there's a Hammerstone figure as well, who was there really a long time, but it just happened that they were gone by the time their figures came out.
When you look at MLW, are you seeing like an increase in ticket sales or no?
No. I guess New York was sold out, Melrose Ballroom. I think the 2300 Arena show did okay. But when I look at ahead, it doesn't look like much going on, where I've seen this pattern for a few years where it's just like the first few rows, and then behind it, it doesn't look like tickets were on sale. And then sometimes they announce a sellout, but that's just depending on how many tickets you put on sale as opposed to the maximum venue capacity.
That's a little trickery we've learned on this show. It's the sellout for how many you release, not necessarily for the building size, right?
Yeah, you need the Supernova vacancy. And on the opposite side, which is I don't know if it's the opposite, but when ECW is running the ECW arena, um, and any of this small venue kept growing. Like this time they packed 1,800 in, 1,900, and now we see it's like I know it's a different setup, but what is it? It maxes out at like 800, 900 people.
Basically 1,000, yeah. Yep, give or take, yep.
Like,
Now what
well,
is going on?
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, well, the fire department wasn't that strict, this time we really packed them in.
Yep. Like I remember back in the day, they used to say 1,100 for ECW, but they were like sardined in there, and I mean, there was no room and stuff like that. So maybe you could get it in, but not with the way it's set up now and the way that they let people in and out of the building.
Yeah, and the Hammerstein Ballroom used to be reported as like 3,000 sellout for ECW, and it's really like 1,800s.
Yep. Yep, for sure. So as far as New Japan Pro Wrestling is concerned, what's going on with them, and what about their shows and ticket sales? Because it seemed like it was Rocket Busters. It was off to a hot start, maybe slowing down a bit.
Yeah, so Windy City Ride in Chicago, it's kind of like we talked the last few weeks, it's kind of sticking a little bit above 5,000 tickets sold, 31 sold in the last 7 days. The show was April 12th, so maybe 100, 150, 200 tickets more sold unless something major is announced. But one of the things, it doesn't mean the tickets aren't moving back and forth. One of the things is that it looks like ticket brokers on the second round of it, bought up a lot of lower level seats that they're now having a hard time getting rid of and selling for cheaper. And then they're followed by opening up upper row seats, which would be less desirable, of course, and you could potentially get better seats for cheaper. So that's staying there. Then for the Ontario, California show in the Toyota Arena, that's still moving along, and that's not till May. So we could see, potentially another 1,000 tickets sold, optimistically. So they've distributed 1,530,034. I believe this is a maxed out 10,000 seat building.
Do you think that with Resurgence, like it's not going to sell out, or do you think that that's not drawing as well? As far as like, it looks like Chicago is over expectations, but for some reason, Resurgence to California seems like maybe under expectations.
So without California sort of like bumping the numbers up, like prior to that, I would think like Ontario, California, okay, you have, a community there. It's one travel from Japan. It's far, but not that far compared to the East Coast and so on. But it might be dependent on like more names being announced for the show. I wouldn't imagine they'd have done more than 3,000 tickets. So thus far, it's sort of like meeting my expectations. I always question sometimes, why you book a venue that big when you know you're not going to sell it. I was starting to look foolish with Chicago, but tickets have slowed down. But generally, like I think a better strategy is booking like a nice theater or classy, smaller venue and charging more because you have more super fans than you have like mass market appeal.
I agree. Maybe when you're booking the shows, book to the right venue to sell out, not necessarily book these huge venues where it's like a basketball court or basketball arena and you're not going to be able to sell it out because it doesn't look as good. It doesn't seem as good, especially when they send out some of those pictures and of the fans like, hey, half the arena's tarped off or hey, half the arena's empty. It just doesn't look right. Just book a smaller venue and sell out the smaller venue.
Yeah, sometimes like it's hard to tell, right? Like venues have to be booked like way in advance, but sometimes like the fact AEW keeps booking like NBA sized arenas is ridiculous. Like, of course, for Sting's retirement, like, you had that planned, you're going to do very well. For a pay per view or premium event, you should give it that shot. But like week to week, like a Dynamite or if Rampage is taping independently, like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't like that. It's just I don't know, it's like a weird thing unless you got the building super cheap and it doesn't matter. But other than that, it's just bad idea, just bad optics.
Yeah, some of the smaller markets that have larger venues that were built for like maybe they had a popular college team at some point, or maybe like a professional team moved on, and you can get it cheaper. Maybe there's like sometimes there's like an extra venue in a market that's not really being used anymore. It's like the third or fourth choice, so it's not always like 4,000 seat venue, but a lot of times it just doesn't make sense, especially what's been reported for AEW losing so much money last year.
Tell me what's going on with the NWA.
So really smart move on the NWA's part in maximizing Kerry Morton's time there. I think eventually he'll move on. He's a college student on the cheerleading squad, if I remember correctly. He's also there in charge of their marketing or social media, or maybe both. So he's really ingrained well in the NWA. Obviously, his father getting a number of bookings there and just being part of the fabric of what you think about with the NWA. But Kerry Morton had said, first and foremost, I extend my contract with the NWA a few months ago to go into December 31st, 2025. That being said, there are many goals in mind. I was the junior champion. I defended that belt in Canada and so on. I left my mark. I was a modern day Ric Flair as far as taking the belt and so on. Okay, so a little bit of puffery following that. But in terms of the business news, I think he's a wonderful foundation to build around for the NWA. Maybe like as Ric Flair said, my number one draft pick, not necessarily overall in the wrestling industry. but certainly for the NWA, like I don't think they can build around anyone better. I would even think about giving him the world title at some point, because he's known, he can perform, and so on. And probably second to him, or right up there, would be Colby Corino, who's also a great fit for the NWA. Unfortunately, he's blocked right now from moving forward with WWE and growing. NWA is smart to continue to take advantage of that.
So are they only doing deals 1 year at a time, or is that just his deal?
So I think he said he extended it. So it might be, I'm not sure how long it was for before. Often we don't even hear about the deals that they have. I remember being surprised that Colby Corino had a deal. He was wrestling a number of other places, but there was, the priority given to the NWA on dates and for whatever other reasons, merchandising and so on.
What about some other shows and even some NWA offshoots? What else is going on in the world of the NWA?
Yeah, so I was kind of dim on. I was very dim on NWA Chicago, like sort of saying, "What's the point of it?" But in Highland Park, they packed out Studio One, and it looked like an exciting experience. So let's see how that continues to grow and what they do with that. In terms of their forthcoming shows, right? Like you said, another territory, NWA Exodus. So they have a show there in Cleveland. Tampa, they have the double tapings out there, and then they've already announced, and we've talked about this a lot, the success of the recent Hard Times show in Dothan. So very smartly, they booked another show in Dothan, and they've given a lot of lead time. It's 9 months away for Looks Like Kill, but maybe they could even do better.
Now, as far as GCW is concerned, what is going on with Game Changer Wrestling? They got a lot of shows coming up.
Yeah, so the show Role Model has just general admission tickets left. That's, I believe, the show in Detroit at Harpo's. March 23rd. March 24th, they're in Rochester, Brett's hometown, and that just has general admission tickets left. On April 20th, they're back in LA. It's a little bit slow at the moment. More than 10 or more third row tickets available. The Breaking GCW show, I think that's in Arizona, has a few second and third row tickets remaining for April 21st, but general admission available. In May, May 3rd, in Tampa, they have just one, it's probably sold, one front row ticket available, but plenty of second and third row and beyond available still. On May 5th, for Cinco de Mayo, they're in Jersey City at White Eagle Hall for Gringo Loco's World on Lucha. So the front row stage are not available, but other tickets are. Then they've announced their return to Atlantic City, June 1st and 2nd at the Showboat for the Tournament of Survival, which is always one of their more popular shows, but nothing yet on the New Jersey Surprise. So we're still waiting on that.
I'm hoping it's the Asbury Park Convention Center. I'm hoping, but we don't know.
Yeah, that would be a cool moment. I feel like it's probably some sort of like long weekend type of experiences. GCW is really good at like finding its passionate fans and like building community.
Absolutely. Now, as far as Masked Republic is concerned, our buddy Kevin Kleinrock and the boys over at Masked Republic, what is going on with them? It feels like they've got a lot going on, and maybe even in the world of AEW.
Yes, we heard of the trouble not involving Masked Republic about visas for some wrestlers from CMLL that a promotion in Texas or wherever it may be, like maybe didn't handle things correctly, it was going to cause problems. But AEW had a tweet regarding CMLS Titan going against Chris Jericho. So, and Max Republic took the opportunity to say Max Republic coordinated visas continue to help make the lucha world go round. It's a lot of work, a lot of headaches, but we are dedicated to making sure that the best, regardless of promotional affiliation, get to perform in the U.S.
Now, is the visa issues has nothing to do with Match Republic, right? So does that mean that they're going to maybe take over some of those talent and get these visa issues corrected, or what's going on with that?
I haven't heard anything about that, but if somebody from AEW who they likely already be coordinating with was smart, they might say like, okay, we have these other talents that you weren't referring to us from CMLL, and they're kind of stuck. What do you suggest? At least if they're not working with them directly, because they have this deep knowledge of the process, that would be a smart thing to do. But I'm not aware of that. We'd have to go back and see like who seemed like they would get stuck, and have they been able to cross back over yet.
As far as Masked Republic is concerned, they got a lot of good stuff, but just outside of obviously that business, I like a lot of the other stuff they're doing. I mean, they're in almost everything Lucha Libre. If you really look at it, masks and comic books and figures. I mean, they're all over it.
Yeah, and I like to see the crossover of guests of the show. So John Wall Street
Kevin's the
had
man.
tweeted thanks to Masked Republic for a lucha doll featuring one of the luchadores that his daughter was enjoying. We know that they've sold out. I think it's called Cathedral City Casino, like multiple times in a row. They have Taco and Tequila Festival show. So all things lucha and growing. I just get so many lucha centric articles in my Google News alerts that I just don't share as many, because it's just become commonplace just to say whatever city there's a lucha show, these are the stars coming in, and so on. I think one thing though that they've been affected for the growth would be some of these smaller shows. They actually have one upcoming in Queens, but at Club La Boom or something like that, where Evolve used to run there too. But I would see all the time in Upper Manhattan in Harlem, near where I work, like along with concert posters, there would always be Lucha Libre posters featuring some of Lucha Libre's biggest stars, and now they have more opportunities, so you see less of those type of shows.
Now, touching on just some miscellaneous stuff and some different things, what is going on with Defy Wrestling? Because they've got Noah coming in and maybe Progress. What is going on with Noah and Defy?
Yeah, so what was it? Defy and Progress are, for all intents and purposes, one now. They merged. If I'm getting that correctly, I know that Defy merged with someone, so I'm imagining it's Progress. And then Noah, right? So you have that brand, and they're going to a totally right. You have the UK brand, Japanese brand, West Coast brand, and they're going to Germany. So always cool to see that collaboration. What else is going on in the world? Reality of Wrestling drew its largest crowd to date at the Walker, Texas Lawyer Arena. Thank you, Texas City. I love that arena name. The World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling, WCPBTW, had what looked like another packed house. Although I went to the website where they host these shows once, and it didn't look like it could host necessarily that they report several thousand, but it's certainly packed out. But I don't have anything official on that one way or another. New Texas Pro Wrestling said we have another incredible turnout for a show in Pasadena, excuse me, over 325 in the building at the Campbell Hall. House of Glory, something interesting to watch. They keep investing more, I would say, like bringing in bigger name talent. They're going to the Boston area for Cinco de Mayo. They'll be at their usual place, NYC Arena, and they're bringing in everyone's favorite Psycho Clown, as well as one last note that live wrestling made its way to Galena, Maryland last week, MCW to be exact. The Baltimore organization came to the Galena Volunteer Fire Department, a place that they regularly run, and they drew a packed house of 280.
Now, just going back to World Classic Big Time Wrestling there, man, that crowd is huge.
They really know how to draw in that market, and it's always combined with a convention or meet and greets and so on. The classics, you have that. I think that's something that is being missed out on by the bigger promotions, where you have these like classic markets that have supported pro wrestling forever, and WWE has talked about it, and we've read about AEW thinking about it, where they're kind of leaning away from that sort of thing just to stay to the big markets. So that leaves opportunities for those that can take risks and bring in big names that longtime fans would be familiar with. And if you know how to market it, you build excitement. It's, sometimes it's the main thing going on in the town that day or that week. So it could really build momentum rather than getting lost among many forms of entertainment and even pro wrestling shows in some of the bigger markets.
Man, they always do well there. I actually interviewed Paul Burchill recently to promote that show, and he was talking about how many people that they were expecting. And I was like, well, they usually draw pretty well. And then I was like, wow, I guess they pretty much draw that strong crowd every time out.
Yeah, it seems like a few years ago that it was first announced, but every time, a couple times a year, whatever it is, that they do well.
Now, just to kind of talk about AEW for a second, and I know we don't talk about it too much, but do you think the Mercedes Moné debut was successful or not successful? Because I was reading that the rating was only 800,000. The opening segment, I guess, is kind of in line to what it normally is. It didn't go up or down or whatever. It's, you get the bump from Big Bang Theory, and it is what it is for the opening segment. But the last segment was only 600 and I think 54K, something like that. The overrun for some reason didn't get counted in, which wasn't really that much higher than that. But then the social media views I was reading when Edge debuted, they had like a total, all in total was 27 million or something like that. When she debuted, it was only 8 million. And then obviously you go for Punk, it was like 50 million. Rock was like 74 million. I mean, obviously it goes up and up by the level of star, but are you okay with the debut? Were you happy with it? And did it really succeed or did it fail as far as drawing numbers?
Yeah, so this was one of those things that, of course, I had to see. I was glad it was in the. I mean, for me, I was glad it was in the opening segment. Well, firstly, sometimes like a surprise is good. Sometimes making a surprise an obvious surprise is something else entirely. Here, it was, of course, pretty obvious for most people what was going to happen, but when she came out, it seemed sort of just the fact that she was there was the draw rather than her saying or doing anything. So you could get away with that the first week. I know that the first segment was higher, but some people, of course, you could attribute that to Big Bang Theory week to week. Like you mentioned, John, if it stayed the way that it was, then maybe that wasn't such a big deal. But certainly, you didn't like take any steam away from her. So the debut is one thing, an intriguing first match is another, and the third is threading her into storylines in a way that engages others. The people have been critical of the women's division, and I've obviously haven't been following it week to week as much, but it's interesting how like some talents that like really seem to get momentum can lose it quickly as well. I'm not sure if Britt Baker's been portrayed as prominently, and Thunder Rosa, obviously, she was injured for a long time, and then there's talk of some, interpersonal issues or disagreements with other talent in her sphere. But you have that opportunity to bring in a known talent, and that will be intriguing. But let's see what they do with her, what happens.
She looked great, looked like $1 million, and apparently she's healthy. They did a little nod because I know Willow is the match where she hurt her foot, and they did a little nod where they're looking at the foot and looks like it's fine. So obviously she's going to jump right in and be wrestling right away. I feel like getting Deonna Purrazzo first definitely solidifies, like, okay, we're serious about making the women's division better. Then you get her. Now you have your number one star for the women's division. So I think that they're at least headed in the right direction. Mariah May as well. I mean, headed in the right direction as far as better talent for the women's division.
Yeah, and you can infuse it with all these stardom talents as much as potentially as much as you want now, who bring a unique flavor and possibility. So it's not for lack of stars necessarily, but maybe just the way things are spotlighted. Eh, I don't like. I don't feel like the division necessarily got off to a great start with their first like 2 or 3 champions, but once you had like Britt Baker there, she was like a star that they made, and she broke through. So that that helped to make things stronger. People want to believe in a women's division. There's no more skepticism as to can women draw or anything like that. So it's just making it work and utilizing the talents you have as best as possible.
As far as Vince McMahon and that stuff, I know Brandon Thurston covered it quite well. But anything to make of, I guess it's Bloom and Nick Khan being named as number one and number two in that lawsuit. As far as Janelle Grant, does anything mean anything? Does it,
Yeah,
like, business wise and Khan wise? I mean, does that mean he's going to be gone, or is he going to be under scrutiny? Like, what does that mean exactly?
I was like, yeah, for people that didn't want to read it, they're all perverts, they're all sick. And when you read it, it's like, okay, no one's accusing any of those other people named of doing anything inappropriate in terms of sexual interactions with the accuser and so on. Um, but if they should have reported it better, handled it better, were aware of it, and so on. And then I'm not taking any blame away from them, but sometimes people just don't understand what they're being accused of. I think, as opposed to Vince, of course, I think that they can weather this storm. I think Nick Khan has been huge for them in terms of business. I know that there's a lot of like talk about politicking of The Rock sort of grabbing more power, who has known Nick Khan for a long time, but I'm not sure if that's happened yet. But one of the signs that we see of like really strong business, of course, is all of these television sellouts. I think as we're recording this, they have 8 in a row, so maybe
Yeah.
4 SmackDowns, 4 Raws. So people are really interested. You won't always have the access to The Rock to do that, but it's certainly not just The Rock, and it's not just attributable to him. I would say not even mainly. You have the Bloodline and Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. So there's a lot going on right now, and they're really well positioned business wise. And you have the Prime logo now, which people will get over, and they'll be able to make a lot of money from that too.
You know what's so funny about that? It's like nobody watched WCW back in the day when they had those awesome Slim Jim, the Havoc stuff. Like when they would do that, people had no problem. I don't remember them ever having a problem with it then. Now they have a problem with this. Very strange to me.
I think people just aren't used to it in WWE. Like I think Vince McMahon was always like against something like that, having it on the certainly in the center ring. I think probably became more flexible on the ring skirts and so on as they got different promotional deals. But it's just something different. But people will get used to it. It's not a big deal.
I don't think it's a big deal at all. I'm very used to it. I was like, that's weird. People are mad about that. I feel like fake outrage, if you will, over that one. I was like, that's strange.
People don't want change, and like of course the Paul brothers are like Iran. Prime is like a very culturally relevant. They weren't interested
Big
in
time.
Prime, but they came back talking about Prime because the other kids were obsessed with Primes. I heard that kids, when they can't afford it, they take their bottle that they bought and then they wash it out and they keep bringing it back, like that they have a new one.
Yes, yes. Yeah, my son's obsessed with Prime for whatever reason. He even has like the little fake bottle. He has one of those, but he always wants to when we're at Wawa or whatever, he always wants to get Prime. He loves that stuff. I don't know how healthy it is,
Yeah, I'm
but
really
he loves
curious
that stuff.
to look at a what is it, like a marketing case study of like how they broke through. And obviously you had the two influencers that started, but like what really like broke through to make like kids obsessive about it, and it became like a status symbol.
Big time. I don't know why. Could be the colors. I don't know. It could be as simple as just the color scheme of it. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, like the Snapple bottle, there's something just cool and appealing about it.
Yeah, it's something. It's got to be some sort of marketing thing. Somebody smarter than me that knows marketing knows how to catch your eyes. Like they know what they're doing, especially with Prime because it's so damn popular.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's head to the plugs here and finish up this bad boy. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Two Man Power Trip. Lavi, where can everybody find you, and what do you got going on in this crazy world?
So follow me on X, Lavie Mark, LAVIEMARG. Check out Official Business Podcast. We are the official business podcast of PW Pondering. So what's new on their website? Zeta Steel interview, and of course this week in women's wrestling, the always popular Business of the Business LinkedIn group is growing. We have even some more promoters in there now, which is a lot of fun. We're distributed by the Creative Control Network, and through the election and even beyond, I want to continue promoting my book, Trump Mania, Vince McMahon and the Making of America's, 45th president. I think I might
Mm-hmm.
have said the wrong number last time. And pick up the 2020 election special edition, which is also available on Audible, which was really cool.
All right. Thank you, Lavi. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.